But he didn't wait. He crossed the room in 3 strides, his boots leaving wet prints that I'd probably have to mop up later, like some pathetic ritual of normalcy in the chaos. His hand shot out, not to hit me. God, no, Theodore wasn't that kind of storm. But to grab the edge of the bed, steadying himself as if the sight of me had knocked the wind out of him. Up close, I could see the exhaustion etched into his face, the faint stubble shadowing his jaw from another double shift slinging hash browns to hungover hipsters in Williamsburg. We'd been neighbors for a year now, sharing this creaky old brownstone on a street where the hipsters pretended not to notice the homeless vets panhandling at the corner bodega. But tonight, the walls between us weren't thin enough to hold back the truth anymore. You broke in. His whisper was worse than a shout, laced with that raw hurt that always gutted me. Theodore's eyes, those deep hazel pools that had pulled me under from the first awkward wave in the hallway, searched mine now like he was drowning. Miles, I gave you that spare key for emergencies, not this. I swallowed hard, the lump in my throat tasting like regret and cheap diner coffee. The truth was, I'd let myself in because I couldn't wait anymore. My own apartment across the hall felt like a cage, the kind with bars made of silence and unspoken what-ifs. We'd started as friends. Late-night talks on the stoop about everything from the Knicks' latest choke to the ache of growing up gay in a world that still whispered "freak" behind your back. Then it shifted, slow like the Hudson at low tide. Stolen glances over shared laundry, his hand brushing mine when we'd passed the joint on his tiny balcony overlooking the East River. Last month, under the 4th of July fireworks exploding like faulty promises, we'd kissed, fierce, desperate, tasting of beer and freedom. But he pulled back after, muttering something about timing and his ex's ghost still haunting the place. I couldn't just sit there, I said, my voice barely above the rain's relentless drum. I gestured to the photo on the floor, the one I'd found tucked in his drawer like a guilty secret. It was us from that road trip last summer, before everything got complicated, me driving his beat-up Ford through the Cascade Mountains, him shotgun with that grin that made my chest ache. You keep saying we're just friends, but this isn't friends, Theo. And neither is what I feel. He sank onto the bed beside me, close enough that I could smell the rain on his skin mixed with the faint grease from the grill. For a long moment, neither of us spoke, the only sound the distant wail of an ambulance tearing down Bedford Avenue. Brooklyn never slept, but in that pause, it felt like the whole city held its breath for us. Finally, he picked up the photo, his thumb tracing the edge where the paper had frayed from too many hidden touches. My ex, Jordan. He left because of this, because I couldn't commit. Said I was too scared to fight for what mattered. His laugh was bitter, like black coffee gone cold. And now here you are, breaking and entering my heart. I wanted to reach for him, to bridge the gap with fingers that remembered the warmth of his back under starlit skies. But fear pinned me in place. Fear of rejection, of being the rebound in a story where I deserved the leading role. Instead, I told him about the letter, the one burning a hole in my jacket pocket, addressed to my parents back in Tacoma. Coming out on paper after 30 years of pretending felt like jumping off the Verrazano without a net. I was going to mail it tonight, but I needed to see you first, to know if this is real. Theodore's gaze softened, the storm in his eyes giving way to something tender, vulnerable. He set the photo down and turned to me, his hand finding mine in the space between us. His palm was calloused from years of flipping burgers and fixing bikes on the side, a mechanic's hands that had rebuilt more than engines. Miles, he murmured, his voice wrapping around my name like a lifeline. You walking into my life unannounced? That's the best thing that's happened to me since I left that small-town hellhole in Ohio. But real? Yeah. Terrifyingly real. We talked then, really talked, for the first time without the buffer of neighbors' walls or the haze of unspoken desire. He confessed how Jordan's betrayal, cheating with some finance bro from Chelsea, had left him hollow, convinced love was just another American dream sold to suckers. I shared my own scars. The high school beatings in the locker room, the church youth group that preached, love the sinner, hate the sin, while eyeing me like I was the devil's own. By the time the rain eased to a drizzle, We drained the six-pack from his mini-fridge, laughing through tears about the absurdity of it all. Two gay guys in their 30s, still figuring out how to love without armor. As the clock ticked past midnight, he leaned in, his forehead resting against mine. "Stay," he whispered, and it wasn't a question. I did, curling into the space beside him on that lumpy mattress, his arm draped over me like a promise. For the first time in years, sleep came easy, wrapped in the rhythm of his breathing and the faint hum of the city outside. Little did I know that night was just the spark. The fire was coming, and it would burn us both before it warmed us. The next morning dawned gray and unforgiving, the kind of Brooklyn autumn light that filtered through grimy windows like a half-hearted apology. I woke to the smell of bacon sizzling, Theodore humming some old Springsteen tune in the kitchenette. He was shirtless, his lean frame marked by the tattoo on his shoulder. A compass rose, inked during a rebellious phase in Pittsburgh. "Figured we'd need fuel for whatever this is," he said, sliding a plate across the counter with that crooked smile that hit me harder than any shot of espresso. We ate standing up, elbows bumping in the tiny space, trading stories about our misspent youths. Mine involved sneaking into dive bars in Seattle's Capitol Hill, nursing ginger Alesh while dreaming of the day I'd escape to New York. His was rougher, coming out at 17 in a Rust Belt town where the only rainbow was the oil slick on the Cuyahoga. "Dad disowned me faster than you can say blue-collar bigotry," he said, but there was no self-pity in his tone, just the quiet resilience of someone who'd rebuilt from scraps. By noon, we'd ventured out, bundled against the chill, wandering the streets of Greenpoint like tourists in our own lives. We hit the Polish deli for pierogies, laughed at the street art mocking hipster gentrification, and stole a kiss behind a dumpster that tasted like possibility. For those hours, it felt like we'd cracked open the world. Theodore's hand in mine, a defiant middle finger to every sideways glance from passers-by. "Let him stare," he growled when an old lady clucked her tongue. "This is New York. We're the fucking skyline." But as the sun dipped low, painting the warehouses in bruised purples, doubt crept in like fog off the river. Back at his place, I pulled out the letter, my fingers trembling as I sealed the envelope. "You think they'll hate me?" I asked, the words slipping out before I could cage them. Theodore pulled me close, his chin resting on my head. "They might, but you'll have me, and that's not nothing." His voice held a steadiness I envied, forged in the fires I'd only glimpsed. We made love then, not frantic, but slow, exploratory, like mapping uncharted territory with whispers and touches that spoke louder than words. It was the first time I'd felt truly seen, not as the quiet graphic designer from across the hall, but as Miles. Flawed, fierce, alive. Weeks blurred into a rhythm that felt dangerously like home. Mornings started with coffee on his balcony, watching fairies slice the water while he sketched bike designs on napkins, his side hustle turning into something real. Afternoons, I'd work from his couch, my laptop balanced on knees still weak from the night before, stealing glances at him sprawled with a book of Kerouac poems. Evenings were ours. Walks along the promenade, where the Manhattan lights twinkled like distant stars, his arm around my waist as we talked dreams. Mine of exhibiting my digital art in Soho galleries, his of opening a custom shop for queer cyclists, bikes for the outcasts, he'd joke. But beneath the glow, fissures formed. Theodore's shifts at the diner stretched longer, his laughs shorter. I'd catch him staring at his phone, thumb hovering over Jordan's name in the contacts. A ghost I thought we'd exorcised. One night, after a particularly brutal 12-hour day, he snapped at me over something stupid, like the way I'd left dishes in the sink. "Can't you just give me space, Miles? Not everything's a goddamn rom-com." The words stung, but I swallowed them, chalking it up to exhaustion. We made up in the shower, water cascading like forgiveness, but the seed of unease took root. Then came the call from my parents. Terse, tearful, the letter arriving like a grenade in their mailbox. "We love you, son. But this, we need time." Their voices cracked over the line, 1,000 miles of Pacific Northwest rain between us. Theodore held me that night, his silence a balm, but I saw the shadow in his eyes. His own family's rejection echoing mine. Thanksgiving loomed, a holiday that always felt like a lie in our godless little bubble. He suggested we host a potluck with the building's misfits, a drag queen from 3B, the non-binary barista from downstairs. It was perfect. Turkey from the halal spot, queer carols belted off-key, and for once, no pretense. As we carved the bird, Theodore's knee pressed against mine under the table. A secret Morse code of, "I choose you." In that moment, with laughter bouncing off the peeling wallpaper, I believed we could outrun the storms. But life in America doesn't hand out happy endings without a fight. The betrayal started small. A late night at work that smelled of cologne not his own. A text deleted too quickly when I glanced over. I ignored it because love makes fools of us all. Until the night I came home early from a client meeting, the key turning in the lock like fate's cruel joke, and heard voices, low, intimate, from the bedroom. My heart plummeted as I pushed the door open, the scene unfolding like a nightmare scripted by the gods of bad decisions. Jordan was there, lounging on our bed like he owned it, his Armani shirt unbuttoned just enough to scream entitlement. Theodore stood by the window, arms crossed, his face a mask of conflicted fury. The air was thick with the scent of expensive scotch and old wounds reopened. "Miles?" Theodore stammered, spotting me first, his color draining like milk down a drain. "This isn't." "Isn't what?" My voice came out steady, a miracle considering the earthquake inside. I dropped my bag, the thud echoing like a gavel. Jordan smirked, that predatory gleam in his eyes the same one that had hooked Theodore years ago, back when we were all just names in someone else's story. "Hey, neighbor," he drawled, his Midwestern polish slathered over Brooklyn grit. "Theo here was just catching me up, on how domestic things have gotten." The room spun, but I held my ground, years of quiet resilience kicking in like muscle memory. I'd always been the steady one, the guy who designed logos for nonprofits while dreaming of his own spotlight. Theodore, though, he was the wildfire, beautiful and destructive, and I'd walked straight into the blaze knowing the risk. "Catching up," I echoed, my gaze locked on him, pleading for the lie to be just that. "After everything?" He stepped forward, hands outstretched like a man wading into traffic. Jordan showed up out of nowhere, said he was sorry, that he'd changed. I told him to leave, Miles. I swear. But his eyes darted to the floor, that telltale flicker of doubt I'd learned to dread. Jordan chuckled, low and mean, rising like a shark scenting blood. "Come on, Theo. We both know this little experiment was cute while it lasted. But real life's not a indie flick. You need someone who gets the game, not some wide-eyed artist playing house." The words landed like punches, each one bruising deeper because they echoed my own insecurities. I wanted to scream, to shatter the vintage lamp we'd scavenged from a stoop sale, but instead, I laughed. A hollow, broken sound that filled the silence. The game? Is that what this is? Because last I checked, love isn't a merger, Jordan. It's not about closing deals or climbing ladders. I turned to Theodore, my voice cracking. "Tell me he's wrong. Tell me we're more than that." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out at first. Just the rasp of a man caught between past and present. Finally, "I don't know, Miles. He reminds me of who I was before all this hurt. Before I let myself believe in us." The admission hung there, heavier than the rain that had started again outside, pattering against the pane like accusatory fingers. Jordan seized the moment, slipping an arm around Theodore's waist with the ease of old habit. "See? Even he knows. Let it go, kid. Plenty of fish in the sea, or whatever the saying is." But I saw the flinch in Theodore's posture, the way his body leaned away even as it stayed put. It was enough to keep me from crumbling right there. I grabbed my jacket, the letter to my parents still crumpled in the pocket like a talisman of unfinished business. "You two deserve each other," I spat, the door slamming behind me with a finality that echoed down the stairwell. The cold hit me like a slap, November wind whipping through the alley as I stumbled toward the subway. Tears blurred the neon signs. Korean barbecue, vintage records, hopeless romantic tattoos, each one mocking the fool I'd been. How had I let it get this far? From that unannounced entry to this eviction from his heart, all in the span of months. My phone buzzed. A text from him. Wait, please, I fucked up. But I powered it off, the screen going dark like my resolve hardening. I crashed at my friend Lena's in Bushwick, a tiny walk-up stacked with canvases and cat hair. She didn't pry, just handed me a joint and a blanket, her queer solidarity a quiet anchor. Men are trash, she muttered, but her eyes said you're not. That night, sleep evaded me, replaying the scene in loops. Jordan's smirk, Theodore's hesitation. The bed we'd shared now tainted. By dawn, resolve settled in, bitter as diner pie but mine. I wouldn't beg.
Ide rabuil.
The next days blurred into a haze of avoidance. I'd duck into my apartment only for changes of clothes. The space across the hall a minefield of memories. Work became my refuge. Tweaking designs for a queer youth center, pixels forming rainbows that felt more real than my own. But Brooklyn conspired against forgetting. Every corner held a ghost. The laundromat where we'd folded socks and secrets. The coffee shop where he'd first called me babe over lattes. And always, the pull toward his door, key burning in my pocket like contraband. He tried reaching out. Notes slipped under the door, voicemails thick with apology. Jordan left. It was a mistake. I choose you. But trust, once cracked, doesn't mend with words. I ghosted him, pouring energy into outreach. Volunteering at the center, mentoring kids who reminded me of my younger self, scared and sparkling. One evening, as I helped a teen named Kai sketch his coming-out story in comic form, Theodore appeared at the door, hat in hand, looking like a man who'd run a marathon through regret. Miles, he started, voice rough from disuse. The kids eyed him curiously, but I waved them off to the craft table. Can we talk? 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I nodded, leading him to the rooftop garden where tomato vines twisted like unanswered questions. The city sprawled below, a glittering testament to survival. You broke me, Theo? I said plainly, arms crossed against the chill. Walked in unannounced. Yeah. But you let him waltz right back in like I was temporary. He winced, running a hand through his hair. I was scared. Jordan represented the easy path, the one without vulnerability. But you're the hard road, the one worth every blister. I sent him packing that night, blocked his number, changed the locks. He pulled a key from his pocket, my spare, returned like a white flag. This place isn't home without you. Tears pricked my eyes, but I held firm. Words are cheap in this town. Show me. He did in fits and starts. Flowers from the bodega, shifts cut short for date nights at hole-in-the-wall jazz clubs in the village. We rebuilt slow. No sleepovers, just coffees that stretched into confessions. He opened up about therapy, the kind I'd nagged him toward, unpacking the baggage from Ohio basements and Jordan's betrayals. I shared my parents' slow thaw, a Christmas card arriving with "proud of you," scrawled in my mom's shaky hand. Winter gripped the city, snow blanketing the brownstones like forgiveness. One night, as we shoveled the stoop together, mittens bumping, he stopped and pulled me close. I love you, Miles, not as a neighbor or a fling, as my partner, my future. The words hung in the frosty air, and for the first time, I believed them. Spring brought green shoots, his bike shop gaining traction, my art show booked for June. We traveled upstate, hiking the Catskills where trails mirrored our path. Steep, muddy, but leading to vistas that stole breath. There, under a canopy of budding maples, he proposed, not with a ring, but a vow. Let's build something real. No more ghosts. I said yes, the word tasting like dawn after storm. But America being America, peace was fleeting. Whispers started at the shop. A rival mechanic, Eddie, sniffing around Theodore's clients, spreading rumors about that gay boy running a scam. Then the fire arson, the cops said, gutting the front window in a blaze of hate-fueled flames. We stood in the ashes, his arm around me, sirens wailing like dirges. Who? He growled, fists clenched. But I knew. Eddie, cornered later with a lighter in his pocket and slurs on his breath. The arrest was swift, justice rare but real in our corner of the world. As we rebuilt, brick by brick, I saw the man he could be, fiercer, kinder, unbowed. Yet doubt lingered, a shadow in our light. One humid July evening, as fireflies danced over McCarran Park, Theodore confessed over hot dogs from a cart. Jordan reached out again, offered investment for the shop. Strings attached, of course. My stomach twisted. And I told him to fuck off. For good. His eyes met mine, steady as the Brooklyn Bridge. You're my investment, Miles. The only one. We kissed then, amid joggers and dog walkers, the city applauding with car horns. But as summer deepened, the real test came, not from exes or arsonists, but from within. My parents invited us to Tacoma for a visit, a olive branch wrapped in caution. Theodore balked, old wounds flaring. What if they see me and change their minds about you? Then we fight, I said, echoing his earlier fire. Together. The flight west was tense, turbulence mirroring our nerves. Landing in Seattle-Tacoma felt like stepping into a memory. Evergreens hugging the horizon, the Salish Sea winking blue. My folks' house hadn't changed. Rambler with a picket fence, the kind of suburban Americana that hid cracks. Dinner was awkward. Mom's lasagna steaming, Dad's questions probing like fault lines. So, Theodore, he ventured. Fork paused. What do you do? Fix boinks. Build dreams. Theo replied, his hand finding mine under the table. The room held breath, but then Mom smiled, tentative. Sounds solid. Pass the garlic bread. It wasn't perfect. Whispers of lifestyle slipped out, but it was human. We hiked Rainier the next day, my parents trailing, stories flowing like the rivers. On the summit, wind-whipped and triumphant, Dad clapped Theo's back. Welcome to the family, son. Back in Brooklyn, the high faded into routine, but stronger now. Until the letter arrived. Anonymous, postmarked from Chelsea. He's lying to you. Ask about the night in Pittsburgh. My hands shook as I read it, Jordan's handwriting a venomous scrawl. Confrontation brewed that evening. Theodore walking in to find me pacing, the paper clutched like evidence. What's this? He asked, face paling. The truth, I whispered. Or another lie? He snatched the letter, scanning it with eyes that widened in horror. Pittsburgh? That was years ago, Miles, before Jordan even. His voice trembled, not with guilt, but rage. We sank onto the couch, the same one we'd christened with laughter and limbs, now a confessional. I was 22, fresh out and feral. Hooked up with this guy at a dive bar, rough trade, the kind that leaves marks. Woke up to him robbing me blind, wallet and dignity gone. Never told a soul because, shame I guess, feels like failure. I searched his face, the raw edges of memory etching lines there. And Jordan knows? Found out somehow. Used it to control me. Twist the knife when things got bad. He crumpled the paper, tossing it like toxic waste. But you? I want you to know everything. No more shadows. Relief washed over me, mingled with sorrow for the boy he'd been, navigating alone in a world quick to punish queerness. We held each other that night, his story weaving into ours. Not as a fracture, but a foundation. Thank you, I murmured into his neck, for trusting me with the dark parts. Summer swelled, humid and hopeful. The shop reopened grander with a mural I designed. Rainbow gears grinding against prejudice. Customers poured in. Dykes on fixies, trans folks customizing cruisers, a community blooming from ashes. Theodore thrived, his laugh booming as he torqued wrenches, grease-streaked and glorious. Evenings, we'd bike the bridges. Wind in our hair, Manhattan's pulse syncing with ours. But conflict simmered beneath, American as apple pie and inequality. My art show loomed, a solo exhibit at a Bushwick gallery. Unannounced, intimate cartographies. It was my soul on canvas. Digital maps of our stolen moments, fire escapes traced in neon. His compass tattoo rendered in code. Critics buzzed, but so did the trolls, online vitriol from faceless accounts. Faggot propaganda. Boycott. One night, post-opening champagne haze, a drunk heckler cornered us outside, slurring slurs that escalated to shoves. Theodore stepped in, fists balled. "Back off, asshole." But the guy swung, catching Theo's jaw with a crack that echoed like heartbreak. Chaos erupted, fists, shouts, sirens. I pulled him away, blood on his lip, my heart pounding with a fury I'd never known. At the ER, stitches and ice packs later, he grinned through the swelling. "Worth it. For you." "No," I snapped, tears hot. "Not worth losing you." In that sterile room, beeping monitors a grim chorus. The weight hit. Love in this country meant vigilance. Every joy shadowed by threat. We drove home silent, the city lights blurring through rain-smeared glass. Fall arrived with a vengeance, leaves carpeting the streets in crimson warnings. My parents visited, awkward thawing into alliance. Dad tinkering in the shop, Mom critiquing my frames with artist's eye. "You're brave, Miles," she said one afternoon over cider in the park. "Braver than I was at your age." Her hand on mine bridged oceans, a quiet mending. Yet betrayal's echo lingered. Eddie, out on bail, started harassing clients. Tires slashed, whispers of "go back to the pansy shop." Theodore hardened, staying late to guard the place, his easy smile fracturing. "Can't let them win," he'd say, but exhaustion hollowed his cheeks. I pushed back, organizing a fundraiser, queer artists and allies packing the gallery, proceeds for security cams. It worked, swelling his confidence, but strained us. Arguments over risks, my pleas for caution clashing with his defiance. The climax built like a nor'easter, winds howling off the Atlantic. One frigid December eve, as snow blanketed the city in hush, I got the call. Theodore missing. His phone dead, shop dark. Panic clawed my gut. Visions of Eddie, or worse, some random hate. I raced through flurries, pounding doors, the building's eccentrics rallying. Lena with her baseball bat, the drag queen dialing cops. Hours stretched eternal, my mind replaying every fight, every "I love you" unsaid. Then headlights pierced the storm. His truck, pulling up with a skid. He stumbled out, soaked and shaking, a bottle dangling from numb fingers. "Miles," he choked, collapsing into my arms. I went to see Jordan." The world tilted. "What?" After the threats escalated. He called, offered protection. Cops he knows pull strings. His breath reeked of bourbon, eyes red-rimmed. I didn't take it. Told him we're done, that I'd burn before bending. But I needed escape. Drove to the bridge, stared at the water, thinking maybe you're better off without my mess. Betrayal burned, not for the visit, but the secrecy, the solo spiral into abyss. "You shut me out," I whispered, snow melting on my lashes. "We're in this, Theo. No solo acts." He nodded, broken. "I know. I'm poisoned sometimes." "No," I said fiercely, cupping his face. "You're human, and so am I." We stood there, sirens distant, the city a frozen witness. In that vulnerability something shifted, walls crumbling like the snowdrifts around us. Cops hauled Eddie in for good that week, evidence mounting like drifts. The shop stabilized, our bond tempered in the forge. New Year's Eve, we watched the ball drop from his balcony, confetti swirling like second chances. To us, he toasted with hot toddies, unannounced and unbreakable. But the real drama unfolded in spring's thaw. I proposed "yes me" on a whim during a Central Park picnic. Ring a simple silver band engraved with coordinates of that first kiss. He laughed through tears. "Hell yes," pulling me down into grass stained with promise. Wedding plans bloomed, small in the Cascades, my parents hosting. Yet as vows loomed, doubt gnawed, his not mine. "What if I fuck it up?" he confessed one night, tracing my collarbone. "What if I'm not enough?" I kissed his fears away. "You're everything, and that's human enough." The ceremony was magic. Pines whispering blessings, wildflowers nodding in alpine breeze. vows exchanged under a sky vast as forgiveness. I promise to walk in unannounced, to stay through the storms, to choose you every damn day. Rings slid on, sealing us against the world. My parents teared up, Dad's gruff, proud, the sweetest gift. We danced barefoot till stars wheeled overhead, bodies sinking like they'd always known. Back in Brooklyn, marriage didn't erase scars, but softened them. The shop thrived, expanding to a line of pride bikes, custom frames for every body, every story. My art took off, galleries clamoring for series on queer cartographies, maps of love's hidden paths. We adopted a rescue mutt, Jasper, who claimed the fire escape as his throne, barking at fairies like they owed him rent. Years folded like origami. Anniversaries in the mountains, holidays blending families. His chosen kin from the diner, mine thawing over turkey. Conflicts came, job stresses, health scares, his knee from an old crash acting up, the world's endless grind against us. But we fought fair. Therapy Tuesdays, date nights enforced by calendar alerts. Betrayal's ghost visited once, Jordan's obituary in the Times. Overdose, a quiet end to a loud life. Theodore mourned briefly, then let go. He was a chapter. You're the book. The humanistic heart of it all emerged in the small acts. Volunteering at the youth center, where Kai's comics now graced walls. Mentoring apprentices at the shop, teaching torque and tenacity. One sweltering August, as we biked the Hudson Path, sweat slick and laughing, a kid on a bench waved us over wide-eyed, out for the first time. You too. You're like goals. Theodore ruffled his hair. Kid, goals are just starts. Keep pedaling. We did. Through economic dips that pinched the shop. Through my gallery show bombed by critics, sentimental slop. Through it all, the unannounced entry that began us echoed. A reminder that love arrives messy, stays through the rewrite. Now, a decade on, gray threading our temples, we sit on that same balcony, Jasper snoring at our feet. The city's changed, gentrified edges softening our block, but we endure, hands entwined. Remember when I barged in? He teases, hazel eyes crinkling. How could I forget? I lean in, kissing the compass on his shoulder. Best intrusion ever. In America, where dreams fracture and reform, we've carved ours. Not flawless, but fiercely human. Love, it turns out, isn't a destination. It's the road, potholed and panoramic, best traveled side by side. And if another storm brews, we'll face it unannounced, unbreakable. As the sun dips, painting the skyline gold, Theodore whispers, "Ready for whatever's next?" Always, I say, and mean it.